All right, this is what we're going to do in class today. This is called point notation, and this is called function notation. And so we're going to do both of them 2 points. So all I want you guys to do is to be able to apply this rule to this point, this rule to, there's 3 points here, but to this table, and then to write this out in words, what's happening right here. So once you're able to do that, you should be done watching the video, okay? So let me show you what point notation really means. So point notation means that I have x and y are my normal points. So let's say that I have the point 2, 3. And then I'm going to make a change to x and y. So when I make a change to it, I draw this to say that there's a change happening. And then I'm going to say, okay, what's happening to x? X is going to add 3, and then y is going to subtract 2. So this is a change to every single point that follows this rule. For right now, we're just going to do this one. So that means that I take this x and I add 3 to it. So I go 2 plus 3. I take this y and I subtract 2 from it. 3 minus 2. So that's going to give me 5 and 1. And that's what this point becomes. So I draw the arrow to show that this point became this point. So that's what we're doing. So sometimes we'll have a rule for multiple points. It'll say xy becomes 3x plus 2, 2y minus 1. So it's a little bit more complicated. And then they give me a table of x's and y's. So x is 1, 2, and 3. Y is 7, 9, and 11. So to all of my x's, I'm going to multiply by 3 and then add 2. So I'm actually just going to do those steps right here. Remember, our order of operations tell us that we have to do multiplication first anyways. So I'm going to multiply all of these by 3. So 1 times 3 is going to be 3. 2 times 3 is going to be 6. 3 times 3 is going to be 9. And then it tells me, this was times 3. And then it tells me to add 2. So I'm going to add 2 here. 3 plus 2 is 5. 6 plus 2 is 8. And 9 plus 2 is 11. I'm going to do the same thing to my y's. My y's, first thing needs to happen is to multiply by 2. So 7 times 2 is 14. 9 times 2 is 18. 11 times 2 is 22. And then next thing I need to do is subtract 1. So 14 minus 1 is 13. 18 minus 1 is 17. And 22 minus 1 is 21. So this table that was right here became this table right here. All of my x's are now these. All of my y's are now these. So that's really all that I'm doing. Okay? So I'm applying this rule to all the x's and this rule to all the y's. Doing the example that I actually gave you. Doing this one right here, number 1. I'm going to do it with you, okay? So this example, I'm going to take the 7 and I'm going to add 3 to it. I'm going to take the 1, I'm going to multiply it by 2, and then I'm going to subtract 9. So 7 plus 3 gives me 10. 2 times 1 is 2, minus 9 is negative 7. So that's the new point for this guy, okay? So that's what we're doing here. Now sometimes I'll give you a rule. I'll say the function started as f of x, and then the function became, let's say, 1/2 f of x minus 2 plus 1. So let's see what happened here. The function is being multiplied by 1/2. So multiplied by 1/2. The function was multiplied by 1/2. And then also I added 1 to the function. And I added 1 to the function. Sorry, I ran out of room. I'll rewrite it. To the function. Now this is happening to the x. So the x, I subtracted 2 from the x. Okay, so the function is your y values. The x are your x values. So if it asks me to write it as point form, I'm going to go xy. What happened to the x? I subtracted 2 from it. What happened to the y? Well, it was multiplied by 1/2, so 1/2 times y. And I added 1, so then I'm going to say plus 1. So that's how I can write it in function notation, in point notation from the function rule. I know I didn't do a lot of examples. I'll do a lot of examples in class.